What's up, guys? It's just Nick this week, but I got a special co-host. Jeff Sweenor's joining us once again here, and him and I are going to talk about, what's on top of my mind, because I just got out of a client call that we've been in pre-construction with for quite some time, and we're struggling to get them to sign on the dotted line. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about my struggles to position ourselves in the marketplace that we want to be in. And I come to realize that it's all my fault. And I've made some mistakes, and we talk about that. We also talk about photography and why it's important, and why, or we kind of uncover the fact that I seem to love photographing and videoing the construction process, but oftentimes forget to get the final result, which is basically like watching HGTV and never seeing the result of what they do. Because, I mean, frankly, on HGTV, what they do always looks better than how they're doing it. And if you know, you know. But yeah, let's get into it. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen Windows. If you're aiming to elevate your products with standout features, look no further than Andersen's folding out swing doors. These impressive doors can span up to 48 feet wide and reach up to 10 feet tall, creating a grand entrance that's sure to impress. The top hung system ensures smooth and easy operation, making installation and daily use a breeze. Plus, for those working in coastal areas, Andersen offers a storm watch protection, providing peace of mind and durability against harsh weather conditions. Enhance your builds with elegance and functionality with Andersen's folding out swing doors, and visit Andersen Windows website today to discover more about this product. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. You know, as we head into the end of the year, builders around the world are taking time to share their business secrets with, well, the Association of Professional Builders. Why? Every year, APB releases their State of Residential Construction Industry report, which includes key stats, trends, and insights on how home building businesses are performing. And if you're willing to take their survey, you're going to get a PDF of the 2024 report, a free one-on-one call with an APB member success coach, and first access to next year's publication. The findings are not to be missed and may be just the thing that you need to improve your sales, your project, or financial management processes. It only takes about 15 minutes, so head over to buildertrend.com/MCSORCI 2025 to take the survey now. Shape the future of residential construction and share your insights today. This podcast is brought to you by Velux. Velux's cut, place, and seal installation makes adding skylights to your build easier than ever. Experience worry-free installation with 3 layers of leak protection, solar panels, and built-in rain sensors, and leave your clients speechless. Include skylights in your next project and visit veluxusa.com/remodeler to learn more about the industry-leading warranty. Cool. So it's just us.
Just us. All right. What do you want to talk about?
You know what? I actually do have a topic I want to talk about, and I hope you can help me and anyone else that's listening. Clients. I know, like, you've built an incredible brand for yourself, but I can't help but to assume that you still deal with difficult clients. And what does your process typically look like in terms of, I was going to say selling your product, but maybe more specific? I guess we talk a lot about pre-construction. We talk a lot about not bidding projects. And let me just give you a frame of reference and we can see where it goes. But we are retained for pre-construction for a beautiful project. And we have been in pre-construction for quite some time. And we get to what I assume is the final budget. And that final budget is more than they want to spend. And client tells us they're going to price it with some other builders. And I knew this going into it, over a year before this, because I just knew that was how, like, it was something he mentioned, but I was cocky or confident that we could prevent that if we did a really good job.
Yeah.
And I was wrong. And that's fine. Like, if that's the process, like, that's the process. And, It's my job to make sure that they see the value. And of course, it unfolds the way we think it's going to unfold, and they come back and they're significantly less expensive than us.
Yeah.
And now I'm faced with, okay, well, we can get to a lesser expensive project, which we did. We were able to shave quite a bit off it because our expectations weren't aligned with them entirely. We were pricing it based on the architect, and the architect had very specific expectations around things like millwork. And they were like, we don't care about that stuff. Like, that's not a priority for us. And so we went through the exercise and presented them again, like, hey, this is, we can be closer to what you're intending to spend, but the client's still not sure. So I guess what I want to talk about is when you are in situations with clients that go through this process, how are you navigating it? Because I think a lot of times I talk about how I navigate it, and for the most of the time, I do a pretty good job, and I can get to the crux of, like, what's the budget? Okay, we can build for that budget, and here I am faced with one that I just can't seem to crack.
Yeah. Well, I can offer this, that it's not going to be the last time that you
Damn
face
it,
this
Jeff.
scenario. Been there many times.
Yeah.
And I will say that over the last 6 to 9 months, I have noticed a significant shift in the marketplace, in the
Good or bad?
client. Well, it depends on what you consider good and bad. It's a tighter market, so there are fewer projects, there are more builders, and it's back to where it used to be pre-COVID, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In terms of how hard you
Competitive
have to
and tight.
work. Yeah, yeah. So, first of all, I would embrace that and figure out how you're going to posture yourself in that environment, and what then do your conversations look like. My conversations are completely different today than they were in, say, 2022 to 2023, where it was like fishing in the aquarium. There was just there were an overabundance of projects and not enough builders to fulfill it. So,
Yeah.
And we face that scenario, where we're in pre-construction, where we're at a budget, and there's a little bit of an impasse, and client takes pause and says, well, maybe we should look in a different direction. And I think when you get to that point, you should let them go. You should just, because what are you going to change? Are you going to lower they're looking for, when they're at that level, they're looking for a 20 to 25% reduction. And as well as I, whatever scope that you've outlined, you might have 3 to 5 points to give away. You don't have 20, right? So they're either going to go out there and they're going to find someone that's willing to do it for less, or they're going to go out there and they're going to get educated that, maybe Nick does know what he's talking about. But either way, you don't have control over that outcome.
Yeah. It's there, like, there's definitely some pride and ego that gets in my way, where it's like, I can win them over. I can prove that we can do this. And that's exactly it. We were looking for a 25% reduction, and we did it. And, I pitched the conversation like, listen, these are ideas to get that 25%. These are not, like, this isn't the area that we have to cut back on.
Yeah.
And of course, like, I pick the areas that they don't want. They're like,
Of
well,
course.
we would never want to not do
Compromise
that.
there. Yeah.
And so then it becomes this fixated conversation of like, well, the only way you can build this for what we want is if you take all the stuff that we want out of it.
Right.
It's like, no, no, no. And I'm like, and I heard myself repeating, I'm like, this is such a failure. Like in terms of like the way I rate my conversation, I'm like, I pitched a path to get to where they wanted on from financially, where it's like, and I picked the wrong areas to compromise on.
Sure.
And it's like, it is like, the other part of me is like, you know what, if they're going to bid it out and we're going to play this game, then I need to walk away. And ultimately this is why I'm late to the podcast, by the way. 'Cause I just got so it's fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
And ultimately I said, like, guys, listen, I can build you a house for what your budget is. The budget I pitched to you was communicated to me that was more than $1 million more than you wanted to spend. Fine. We can build you a beautiful home for what you want to spend. What do you want to spend?
Hmm.
And it becomes this like round and around game of like, well, I don't want to tell you what I want to spend because you're just going to cut it out of all the stuff I want. I'd rather us tell you what we want and then you price it competitively.
Right.
Like, well, we've priced what you want. And that was, come to find out, not what you wanted. So it's like, I just need to be able to reverse engineer this. And, and typically those conversations go really well where it's like, fine, like, we want to be at $2 million. Like that's
Right.
that's our all in, like, can you get me there? It's like, well, that's my exercise. And I will come back and see, like, can we execute this project in a way that we feel comfortable with at a $2 million price tag? And that's like that. We're typically pretty successful at that. And today
Sure.
it just was not. It was like, well, we're not sure if that's how we want to go about it. And a big part of me is like, I just kind of want to walk away at this point.
Yeah.
Because but the other side of me is like, this is where I lose sleep. It's like, was it me? Did I fail at some point? Like what step did I take that was wrong? Like, how did
Hmm.
I screw this up? And, let me see if I can fix it.
Yeah. So I have a couple of thoughts. First one is I would be very careful not to posture that you have a good, better, best program.
Yeah.
Like
Agreed. Because they
you
don't
you
want the
want to,
good or
yeah,
better. They want the
right,
best.
right.
Yeah.
So you want to put that line in the sand that says that we can value engineer this, but what I'm not going to compromise is the R value of your insulation,
Mhm.
whatever those important things that you deliver, you want to make it clear that you're not going to compromise on those things. If they have to make some adjustments in their selections, whatever it is, but that you're not going to compromise on what you've built your reputation on.
Right.
So you need to draw that line in the sand. The second thing is that popped into my head was you must have a past client in your repertoire that can sell you as well as you can sell you. And, you might say to the client, Mr. Jones, I get the position that you're in. Before you walk away, I just want you to make one phone call to Mrs. Smith, who,
Mhm.
was in a similar situation to you. And I just want you to hear for your own ears what the experience was like. So, try to pivot off of it because there's nothing else you're going to say that's going to make this thing miraculously turn around. They need to hear some other evidence.
Yeah.
Um,
I know I'm not the only one that thinks this way. So I'll say it. You know, I do have those clients, but I always wonder how those phone calls really go. And of course I paint them out like they're going to ask one question and it's going to be the one question that they were frustrated with us about. And
yeah,
and it'll be like, yeah, we talked to them, but they said, man, they hated XYZ, or,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you failed at this part. When the
Yeah.
reality is like most people would never, never frame that in that way, especially if it's like, the whole point of it is for us to develop a relationship with a potential client.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think about that constantly. It's like, oh, can we talk to 3 previous clients? And I'm always like, yeah, who's going to say the nicest things about us?
Right.
Um,
Well, I think that if you gave them somebody that didn't say one bad thing or one negative thing,
yeah,
they'd know it was a setup,
yeah,
right? There's
totally.
got to be some pain. They're going to ask the other client, what were your pain points?
Yeah.
And if they're honest, they'll give them to them, and they'll
Mhm.
say, look, we didn't get enough communication about the expectation of lighting layout or whatever it is, right? And so they'll note that and they'll write that down, and they'll just say, hey, I just want to make sure that I stay in front of that
Totally.
particular topic. I don't think it's going to come back to you and say,
I know.
well, reconfirmed, I'm not going to go with you because your lighting schedule sucked.
Yeah. No, it's my own brain that gets in the way sometimes. It's like,
Yeah.
over consider, over analyze, over worry about silly things.
Right. And I think that the underlying thing here, it's a really good lesson. It's a good lesson for you. It's a good lesson
Totally.
for me. It's a good lesson for every builder that's listening, that these setbacks are what make you better. That's what makes you stronger.
Couldn't agree more.
And you have to come to the realization that you're going to choke on one every
Mhm.
now and then. You don't know when it's going to be, but you're going to choke on one. And so the reminder is that you constantly have to be marketing, and you constantly have to be taking every advantage to showcase what your capabilities are, to showcase the capabilities of your company, and to always be in the forefront of your marketplace. So
No,
that
you're spot on. And I mean, I'll be a little transparent here with what I got going on. Is, for a year now, I put the marketing and sales in, the passenger seat, because I've been focused on developing some other parts of the business, and
yep,
trying to get particular jobs up and going. And I've seen the repercussion of that, where it's
yep,
like, it hurts. It's like, shoot, like I gotta refocus my energy back over here. And it's a terrible feeling. But to add to that, we actually just had a job cancel on us.
mm,
And I mean, weeks away from starting, deposit, like, and the job, meetings were great, everything was great, and it literally evaporated one day.
yep,
And I'll never forget, that feeling. I'm like, holy shit, like, I I need to either immediately do something, or I need to go to sleep before I, like, go insane right now, because I don't even know how, like, what am I supposed to feel at this point? Because
yeah,
everything was leading to, to a great successful project.
yeah,
And I spent a week with my Builder 20 group, and I debriefed a lot on, they're like, "Hey, what's going on in your world?" I'm like, "Oh, let me tell you, because I got some stories." And, in doing that, one of the things that I kept coming back to is the speed in which pre-construction happens. And it's the time between, "Hey, Jeff, I want to build a house," to, "Hey, Jeff, we're starting construction,"
yeah,
or, "Hey, client, we're starting construction." And, because sometimes it's, in this case, over a year.
yep, all the time.
And you think about what, from a client's perspective, having no understanding of building, what it takes, and they jump into that first, "Hey, Jeff, I want to build a house with a full tank." And then it's, "Hey, just so you know, permitting is going to take a while, a little bit out of the tank. Just so you know, like, we have to go for appeal, a little bit out of the tank." It's like, "Hey, we're going through a design iteration because we found some structural damage on the existing project." And next thing you know, the tank's empty. Like they have they're completely depleted.
Yeah.
They have no desire to move forward. And there's this massive investment amongst the entire team and the client with money. And it can lead to a canceled project. And
Yeah.
it's not the first time it's happened to us. It's, but it's that speed. And there's no real, there's no real good answer to it. Because a lot of it, quite frankly, was out of our control. But I think about the things that were in our control and how could we have guided the project better, faster, gotten to decisions, quicker, gotten to providing information quicker. But ultimately, taking the position of, listen, you have to assume the client knows nothing. The client doesn't understand that that detail is 25% more expensive than that one.
Mm.
And they are looking to you, Mr. Builder, to, to question that as to like, hey, that's a more expensive detail. It's unnecessary because otherwise it gets designed and adds 25% to the project. And next thing you know, it's the project's over budget, their tank's depleted and the project goes away.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, we see it all the time. We have so many permitting layers, and those permitting layers can have negative consequences.
Yeah.
This agency wants us to push the project landward, and you want to push it seaward, and
Mhm.
or hey, the zoning board turned down our appeal for increase in lot coverage, and all of those kinds of things lead to project fatigue, and ultimately can cancel a project. And I always take that sort of prospect board, right? There's a number of names on there. There's 20 names. Some of them are in pre-construction, some early on, some well in. And I just assume that 25% of that list is going to fade away for whatever reason.
Mm.
And if you go into it with that expectation, then it doesn't hurt so bad when one drops off. I mean, we had an $8 million project canceled this summer. We had permit in hand.
Mm-hmm.
We had started the demolition process in that we did the asbestos remediation. We pulled the power off the building. We're getting ready to knock it down, and client canceled, and they put it on the market. And
Holy
it
shit.
was a major blow. I had the whole workforce aligned around that, and these are our employees. This isn't a
Yeah.
sub that I have to say, hey, sorry, the job's not going to start. Doesn't hurt so bad. But when it's your employees, it's a different. And we figured out a way to rebound, and now it doesn't seem so bad. But I just think you just have to have that expectation that certain amount of these jobs are just going to evaporate for one
Yeah.
reason or another, and to you'll be kidding yourself to think 100% of them are going to convert. Do
Yeah. I
you
don't think
do you
good.
do for your Builder 20? Do you do board reports? Do you write a board report?
We do it differently because we're not part of the NHB. So what's a board report?
Like just a status of your company,
Oh
like
yeah,
every
we do. Yeah, we do updates.
yeah. So
Okay.
I always find it useful. I've been in it since 2018. So
Mm-hmm.
6 years. That's 12 board reports I've written. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So go back and read those, and I read them, and I look at prospects that I have in my pipeline that the next 6 months they're gone. Like,
Yeah.
what happened to them?
Yeah. Right.
But miraculously, those spots got filled with others.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back and you look at that history, you'll see a pattern. And that
Mm.
pattern for us is about 25%.
Yeah.
25% of the prospects that I think are going to convert, we're going to build that project out, go away. And I don't have a rhyme or a reason as to why. The reasons are all different, whether they
Yeah.
something going on with their business, their cash flow is tight, or permitting, or project fatigue, like you mentioned, whatever the case might be. So that seems to help me when when we get that letdown, then you say, well, it's par for the course. That's our schedule. There's
Yeah.
drop one off. And then sure enough, in 2 weeks, there's another one to fill it.
Yeah, I think, for our side of or our business, we have grown so drastically year after year that I've always had, stuff in the pipeline. There was always like we could always plug and play. And, looking at the last 18 months or so, we've had just really big projects in pre-construction and on the table where, the pipeline wasn't as full. So we weren't backfilling with a bunch of projects. We were, and this is a mistake on my part, but 100%, where it's just like, we were like, all right, these projects are ours. Like we're moving forward with these. And the one that canceled was out of all of them was the surefire. Yeah, that's a definite,
Yeah, yeah.
like 100%. And then the one that's not is the one that, I was mentioning, like he's bidding it out, where it's like, wow, like those two projects were a huge part of our 2025 revenue,
Yeah.
and they might both evaporate.
Right.
And like you said, it's like to be in a position where it's like you have to react to that on the marketing and sales side is sucks.
Yeah.
And it's a terrible feeling, but the reality is, you know, what are you going to do? Like
Yeah.
then turn it on. Like you're not going to wait. You gotta turn that thing back on and figure it out. And, you know, I've always worked better under pressure, and that's a fault of mine. Like I feel as though I perform better when I'm under pressure, and something like that is a tremendous amount of pressure. But it's a good reminder, and like you said, it's, you always have to be selling and marketing, and, you know for us, that's where everything is leaning on right now. And we're still small. Like we do run a lean operation, so we can pivot and take on other stuff. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
been an
I think
interesting,
too, it's important
I
for
agree with you. It's
you
been an
and for
interesting
me.
year, and to see just what clients look like.
Yeah. I think it's important too for us, for owners, to how we react in front of our team, and we don't have these major, mood swings where a project goes away and all of a sudden it's the end of the world. You have
Mhm.
to behave like, what? It's just that's the percentage. Those are the odds.
Yeah.
We're going to lose 25%, and we just caught up. That
Yep.
that that one just caught us up. So we should be good for a bit. When I do the prospect board, like I have a list of prospects and at different stages, like they just called, or we've been in some conversations, and I have a I have a percentage next to it, and it's usually
Mhm.
25%, 50%, 75%, never 100%, because there's
Yep.
just no way to ever know. And they slide up to 75%, but they never, until we start digging,
Yeah.
that's when
Right.
it goes to 100%, in my opinion, because you've seen it.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Like I mentioned that we've grown so exponentially over the last couple of years, but I also think I can't remember if I told this on the podcast, but, looking at the last, say, 12 months specifically, we've been, you know, considered for really great big projects. And every single time, like we've been brought up against another builder and considered, we we blow them away in everything with the exception of the one thing I can't control, and it's how long have you been in business? Or
Mm,
how deep is your portfolio? And
yeah,
it's like, well, you knew like that, like all of that information you knew going into this.
right.
We had one project specifically, amazing renovation project, like unbelievable spec, super, super detailed. And we interviewed with the client and got a call when I was actually at the builder show last year that they decided to proceed with another builder. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, all right, can you get me the lowdown? Like, I'd love to know, what worked, what didn't. And the architect was like, yeah, he said that you understood the job the best. Like you definitely had the most detailed proposal. You had the most aesthetic looking proposal. Like you clearly outlined like who you are, your process, your everything like that. That was spot on. You interviewed really well. Like he said that your interview went really well. He just ultimately decided that you didn't have this as much experience as the other guy. I was like,
That's
that
music to my ears.
it's why?
Because
Because you're on the other side of it.
I'm on the other side of it,
You son of a
right?
bitch.
Yeah. But you're going to get yours too.
I
And
know, but when?
it 35 years.
I can appreciate that you're on
You're
the
going to
other
cut
side.
that. You're going to cut that time in half.
No,
So
and I'm totally like I'm committed to cutting that time in half. It's just it's it's frustrating, and I actually wrote a blog article on my website for this because every time a client does that, I send it to them. But it's essentially like, why would you hire NS Builders over another builder if you're concerned about experience? And it basically outlines like we're using the same subs, we're using the same product. We're all my guys that
yeah,
work for me probably have worked for all the other builders that you're talking to. The only difference is me
yeah,
and the name on the truck. That's it. And it's like, and
yeah.
what, and me and the name on the truck is all of the stuff that you just gave me credit for in my proposal.
I feel like I think it's all about gray hair. You know.
Yeah, but we're all getting gray hair. It's not helping. I'll dye, Jeff. I will dye my hair gray if that's what it takes. Like,
Well, don't rush it, but it's actually it makes me smile inside because I probably have 10. There's probably, I don't know, 5 to 10 companies out there that are all former employees, right? And at some
yeah,
level, they're competing with me, right?
yeah,
And
for sure.
they can say, "Hey, we were trained by the same guy. We know the same thing. We use the same subs. All the things that you just said."
Yeah, but
But
you're
at the
30
end of
years
the
old, so
day, yeah,
scram.
yeah. There's just a certain amount of credibility that comes with experience, good,
Yeah,
bad,
but
or indifferent. It could be
yeah,
bad experience, but it's
but
still
it's
experience.
I know. And that, you know what, like that's why we toured a couple architects through 45 White Oak today. And they were
Nice.
asking why, why are you doing this project? And, I can list off a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is because I'm trying to expedite the fact that I can execute at a higher level than the guys that you're considering,
Yeah,
or at least at the very bare minimum, the same level.
yeah. That's
But,
how you climb the ladder.
and it's like, so, it's this depending on how you want to cut it, sure, it's this big risk of a project, but it should sell and be profitable, but it also should kind of catapult us in the market that we want to be in. And and maybe I'm wrong, but like that, until we build a portfolio of like projects, it will be difficult to wait for one client to give us the chance to build something at that caliber and
Yeah.
then be able to say, we've done it, look it. Hey guys, real quick interruption. As always, we appreciate you listening, but head over to moderncraftsman.co. That is moderncraftsman.co. Check out the website. We got a bunch of free goodies up there. You can download our free labor burden calculator. You can also download our free template for a pre-construction agreement. And as you know, we have launched our pre-construction course, so make sure you check that out. Or at the very least, join our newsletter and make sure that you're getting the notification first before every episode is released, and then key insights to what that episode includes, and plus, bonus features along the way. So, like I said, head over to moderncraftsman.co, and we'll get back to the episode.
I remember that very thing, and it was probably 12 years ago, and I had really intentionally decided that I wanted to build Ferraris, right? I want to build Ferraris,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have any on the lot. So I got to sell that to a client.
Mm-hmm.
I can build your Ferrari, but I've never built one. So you're exactly right. You're taking that step so that you can position yourself to show that in your portfolio. And at the end of the day, if you break even on that project, it'll be a win
Totally.
because you'll have that in your portfolio.
What was that 12 years ago when you're selling that first Ferrari? What did that look like?
Well, it was land, and I had I had bought a piece of land that needed to be subdivided into 3 lots, and it was just I just got in. It was just a really good opportunity, and I just got lucky with it. I got lucky because I knew my way around certain way. Anyway, so I ended up with this land, and now I have the choice. I can sell the lot or the lots and just make a little money and move on, or I can sell the lots and say I'm going to be the builder, or I could say I'll sell the lot, but I don't have to be your builder. And so I put a sign up and I got a call right away. And I met with the client and I said, look, I would love to build your house, but I don't, I'm not mandating that the only way you're going to get this land is by hiring me. And so ultimately I earned the job, and that job was on a very prominent road in Narragansett, and that was my first Ferrari. And so,
What do you mean by you earned the job? Like,
I earned it by the design that I brought to the table, um, the way that way we handled the pre-construction.
mm-hmm.
I worked really hard at convincing the client that we were the right fit, and we could execute what they wanted. It had a lot to do with one of the guys that was working for me had worked for somebody that they had built with in a previous residence. So there was a little bit of trust there. I don't remember exactly all the details, but it wasn't a layup. It wasn't,
Yeah.
It wasn't. So yeah, so that was the first, and that's all it took was the one, and then I just pivoted off of that.
It's funny. Everyone I talk to says, "Listen, Nick, you just need one."
Mm-hmm.
It's like once you do that one, it's that like everything changes.
Yeah.
And I I think that there's some truth to that, but I think that in that advice, they're forgetting all of the ones that they did before that. Because it's like I think about like our Needham project with Steve Teague, like that was a prominent street, an amazing home. We got a
Mm-hmm.
ton of uh, you know, acknowledgement for it. It hasn't led to one single job. Like not directly. And it's
That
one
you
of like
know of.
no, well, now that I say that out loud, I'm like, well, 2 clients did call us. I guess shit, maybe you're right.
Well, here's the other thing. There could be a future client that you don't even know about yet that
And
you got
and
from
I
that.
guess that's what I was getting at. It's like as of right now, it's hard to attribute anything to that job, but it's like, you know, I brought this up in my Builder 20 group actually, and they came out and did a SWOT on my company,
Mm-hmm.
and we were touring some of the projects, and they toured that job, and one of my builders was like, Nick, you why haven't you shown this house off? I'm like, I have, and he goes, oh really? He goes, let's go back on your social media. And it's all photos of the construction, like
Yeah.
all the photos of the construction, not one picture of it done.
Mm.
And it was like, this is like watching an HGTV show for all the progress. and never seeing the end
Never
result.
seen the reveal.
The bus never moves. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, yeah, you're right. And
Yeah,
I booked the photographer that afternoon. I was like, hey, your next availability, I need you to come shoot this house.
yeah,
And we've been trickling it ever since. But it's like, it's funny because that's the whole point. Like
yeah,
the whole point is to show the process, and then here it is. Here's the
yeah.
result. And we posted, I'll never forget, and here I am eating my own words. I remember posting some of the final photos, and I literally got an email that afternoon, was like, hey, I just saw the photos of Needham, I want to talk about building my house. and
Wow.
and I don't think that ever went anywhere. I actually don't remember what client that was. um but it's just like, I remember being like, oh yeah, I guess I should do that.
Yeah. Well, that brings up a good point that I want to make to you, and that is that it sort of ties back to the gray hair and the longevity of your company and the experience. You should work really, really hard at getting final photography, finished
Yeah.
photography, even if it involves staging.
Yeah.
Every time we do a photo shoot, I'm like, where is everybody? Everybody's out of the office because they're all at whatever property and they're all helping staging.
Yeah.
My daughter rolls out of Marshall's with 4 full overflowing carriages
I was gonna
of
say
stuff for a finished
$4,000.
house. For
Yeah.
a finished house. I'm like,
Mhm.
what are we doing?
Yeah, Jeff.
But
I
and
was
they
talking about
set it
that.
up, but you got to do it.
You
You've
have
got to
to
do it because
100%.
you need that cumulative
Yeah.
portfolio of
Yeah.
pictures and it's so easy to say I don't have time for that. We got another project going. It was great. We'll be good, but you
You're
have
you're
to do it.
you're it's so true, and it's like, here you are talking to me, who I produce so much content,
Right?
and so little of it is like the final result.
Yeah.
And now, like, we've gotten pretty strict where it's like we're photoing and videoing every single, like, we're going backwards. And like, we have one client that was just like impossible to schedule,
Yeah.
and they were
Yeah.
like, he was like, yeah, I just don't feel like, I don't know when I'm going to feel comfortable with getting photos, like I just don't want to be here. And
Right.
I remember him, this was a couple months ago, he emailed me, he goes, hey, you can be there, I think it was like August 5th through the 7th.
Yeah.
And it was like the middle of July.
Yeah.
And I called 6 photographers,
Yeah.
and then I end up talking to Motif, Doug, and them, and I'm like, hey, do you guys want to do the architectural shoot on this? And he goes, yes, we'll get the camera. I'm like, let's video it. And then we went there. I'm like, holy shit, I need to stage this place.
Mm.
And I called, it was like 10 different staging companies, and one was like, I actually have availability that day. I'm like, I can't get you in there before. Here are some photos I took. I'll see you on the 5th. And they nailed it. Like, the photos
Yeah.
came out unbelievable.
Yeah.
We got a ton of video. But I was telling a friend of mine, I was talking to an architect today about this, and he was saying how, like, he struggles to get final photography as well. And he goes, and
Yeah.
oftentimes it's because the client has such crappy taste.
Yeah.
Or it's like, or like, we have clients that build beautiful homes, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do furniture in like 2 years. And we're just going to live
Yeah.
with what we have for now. And
Sure.
that's like, that sucks.
Yeah.
And a good friend of mine built this beautiful home, and he had a photographer that was going to get it internationally published. And so they booked the photographer, and the client moved in, and the furniture was heinous. Like, he was like, I just, like, it will ruin this. And he told me he spent $50,000 staging the house.
Yeah. I don't doubt it.
And he was like, I went out and I bought furniture for every single room. He goes, a lot of it I got to return, a lot of it I couldn't, so I had to sell. So I like sold on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
And he goes, and the only thing I think he said, the only thing he ended up not being able to sell was this like 84-inch TV that he put into his tiny apartment. And but it's like, I remember seeing the photos. I'm like, that house is beautiful. He goes,
Yeah.
you should see what it looks like not staged. And he recently got asked if they could film the project. He goes, no. like I can't stage
Can't
it
go
again.
back there. Yeah, yeah.
Like it was like I had one shot and I should have done
Right.
it all in one shot and I didn't.
So a couple things on this topic. This is a good one. You at one time we did the same thing. We went in final photography, and we had to take all the client's furniture out, and we put it in pods out in the driveway. We brought in all kinds of furniture that we were going to return, and we set the whole place up. Did a 3-day photo shoot. Turned out great. The client comes in and sees the result and says, I want all of this furniture. I'll pay you whatever it is. I'll take it. And then hired us to ship those pods to some consignment store. She ended up selling everything that she had in the house, and loved everything that we did. So that could happen, right? That's a
Yeah.
good outcome. And then it's
Let me
also
ask you,
hard. Go ahead.
did you mark up the furniture at that point or did you just
We
sell it at
did.
cost? Yeah.
No, we marked it up
Yeah. So
because
you went
the
from
effort.
well, but my reason for asking is like if that wasn't the case, you would have not only like you would have lost out on all of the effort and probably a restocking fee.
Of
So not
course.
only did you like make up for the fact that, hey, I have no restocking fees and I'm
Yeah.
out in pocket zero, but now it's like, no, now I just netted an additional profit because, you know, I took the chance on it. And that's, I mean, that's like, there's so many kind of thoughts here, but like this is where those kind of freebies or extras or like the extra mile goes into these projects where it's like when you go to that level and you deliver something, you know, above and beyond what the client's asking, it's like especially where it's a furniture piece where it's like you're doing this for the marketing, like you open up this opportunity for clients to just be like, fuck it, I want that.
Yeah.
I gotta have that.
Well, I don't look at it as that we profited from it. We made up for the previous 5 that we had to return and take back and all of that. So, um,
Okay, fair
yeah,
enough.
right. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really the reality of it.
I
But
I mean, we're doing
I,
something similar in Wellesley. Like we have this breakfast nook, and in the rendering, there was this table that Vincent had designed, and it's essentially like a 36 or 40-inch oak stump that gets turned into this bell shape, and then like this oval slab table on top. And he designed it, and he went as far to like actually do shop drawings for it. He's like, I'd love to build this one day. And we were with the team in Madeira out in Germany, and we were talking about it. And the 3 of us said, you know what? This house, like that area of the house won't be what it's intended to be unless it has this table. So we were like, let's build it. And we're building the table. And there was this whole conversation. It's like, how are we like, what do we do here? It's like, if are we selling it with the house? I'm like, God, no. Like that thing's gonna have a little price tag on it, and and if they want to roll it into their mortgage and or whatever, like that's their choice. But that's for show. That's for marketing. And if they don't want it, we'll take it out of the house and we'll sell it because a custom piece of furniture like that is invaluable. That's the way I look at it.
I have 2 more points on this. Circles back to the importance of the final photography. So the best time to ask permission for the client to do a photo shoot and to do a testimonial and to possibly even do a video testimonial. The best time is when you're just about to break ground, right?
Hmm.
So that's when you have to weave that into the conversation because they're the most excited because they're about to begin, and that timeline of when they would have to do that is so far away that it doesn't seem impactful. But you get it out there and you get their permission at that point. then you don't let them forget it. And because it's so hard, you finish a job, they have that, they move in, and the last thing they want to see is you, right? They want you out of your life. They want to enjoy their house. They want, unless you've got a punch list, and then they want to see you. But
Yeah.
once you get the punch list done, they're like, all right, I don't want to see another truck in my driveway. So then to say, how about a photo shoot? Oh my God, that's like, just rub salt right in the wound. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then, hey, can you do it? Would you mind doing a video testimony? We're gonna have a
Yeah.
group go
Right.
over. So, but those things are so important, and and they have a cumulative effect.
Yeah.
The Google reviews, the house reviews, you know, it seems so daunting. But then if you look at it in a year, you look back and you say, oh, I got 8 more reviews or whatever. And then next year, 8 more.
Mm-hmm.
So in 5 years, it's meaningful. In
Yeah.
1 year, it's like, I barely move the needle.
Yeah.
But you just have to do that year over year. No matter how good your business is, you have to keep reminding yourself that you need those little ingredients to separate yourself from the guy that's got 10 more years of experience on you. He
Right.
might have 10 more years, but guess what? Nick's got 50% more positive testimonials than
Yeah.
the guy that I'm considering. He's got
No, yeah.
experience, but I like client satisfaction.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it's funny you bring up the testimonials because one of our projects that we recently finished was, they weren't sure about photography, but they ended up letting us do it. And then they've let us tour, I don't know, 100 people through their home at this point, in
Mm,
big groups.
yeah.
And it's like, and my team's like, we got to see if they'll do a video testimonial. And I'm like, man, I feel like I'm squeezing the ever living
Yeah.
piss out
Yeah.
of this orange here. It's like,
Yeah.
when is that juice gonna run out? And it's
Right.
funny because, like, then I go there and, in person, they're like, "This is no big deal to us." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but
Mm,
I just hate
yeah.
continuing to ask." And one of the
Yeah.
brands we worked on the house was like, "Hey, we want final photography on this particular product. Can you take some specific photography?" I'm like, "Oh my God." I'm like, all right, I gotta just package one email and be like, "Hey, I need to do this, 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 and this. And do you mind also hopping on camera and doing a testimonial for me?" And if not, that's fine. Will you just leave us a Google review? But it does. It like I
Yeah.
hate the feeling
Yeah.
that I'm just ask, 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 ask. But you're right. It adds
Well,
it it adds a lot
that's
of
when you got to
equity with
follow up with gift
potential.
cards, and yeah,
Yeah.
and that's where
I
you have to follow up with gift cards, and a nice dinner at a restaurant or whatever. But here's the other one that's kind of a little. This is like a secret nugget, that if you so I always say to the clients that we want to do this big photography. It's a special project. We want we really need to do a really good photo shoot. And one of the reasons is that we're going to enter this house into an award, whatever, a whole house renovation or a new build, whatever it is. We're going to enter it into a national award. And we may not win, but wouldn't it be? Isn't it pretty cool for your house to be an award-winning, an award-winning house or award-winning design or whatever? And think about if you ever had to go sell the house, you could promote that it was an award-winning. So I always kind of throw that out there, and I think that people makes people feel good. I said it's going to increase your value 5 to 10% easily.
Yeah, it's funny. We recently had one client, just they actually didn't want their project in a magazine.
Mm,
Um, and that's fine. Like actually another side story. We had a lead on a really great project recently, and followed up with, like, there's an owner rep involved, and they were like, hey, they're interested in your White Oak project, but they also want to build. I'm like, oh, we have a property that we could build on. And they're like, all right, they're considering other builders. I'm like, yeah, but I have this amazing property. Let's talk. And they were like, all right, we'll follow up with you next week. And I followed up and I was like, hey, can we set up an interview? And they're like, they're going to pass. And I was like, okay, why? They're like, they were on your website and they realized they're very private clients and they don't want their project all over social media. I'm like, oh, that's unfortunate that that's the take on it, because if a client doesn't want their project on social media, we would never put it on social media.
Right.
And I just was like, I understand, but it's just, and I was like, all right, yeah, totally understood. Like, he's like, I tried to explain to him, like, you wouldn't put it on there, but he just couldn't see that, like, what, everything else you do is on there. I'm like, but how does he know that's everything? He's like, well,
Yeah,
I guess
right,
he doesn't.
right.
And he's like, I'm like, right. So, for me, I was like, all right, I got to think about how we approach that. So I'll share, because, and this is like pre actually launching it. So anyone that's listening to this podcast can steal these ideas, but we're adding to our website essentially a private portfolio. And, we might not have anything in that portfolio, but what it will do is it will at least let a client know, like, oh, there's a whole nother portfolio of work that they won't share. And we'll speak specifically to, like, listen, these are the projects that we are, or in our portfolio, like, these are the projects we are happy to share based on, like, clients are allowing us to share this, but speak to the fact that, like, if privacy is of concern, we will not share it. And I dug around a little bit for some inspiration on this, and I can't remember if it was an architect or a builder, but they had a portfolio of work, but underneath it, they had a list of other completed projects that you couldn't see. And they were
Yeah.
it was kind of like a grayed out font, like Back Bay penthouse renovation, Weston single family, modern home, like, and so on and so forth, where I thought that was a great way to show, like, your portfolio is much bigger than what you see on the website. You just can't see it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it's interesting, I forget what just made me. Oh, my point being is, yeah, if sometimes a client doesn't value the magazine stuff and the award stuff, but you're absolutely right. A lot of clients do, and they're like, "What do you mean? Like, this is gonna win an award?" I actually just got a text from an interior designer. We won an award on a project 2 days ago, and
Nice.
she's like, "Holy shit, we won an award!" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to let you know that." And I'm also like, I should also probably let the homeowner know, because she's gonna be pumped. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's it's funny.
Well, ironically, the higher, the better reputation that you get, the higher, caliber and portfolio that you have, sooner or later, you're going to have uber successful clients that don't want
Yeah,
anything exposed. And we've had three of
totally.
them. We've had an owner of a major sports team in New England. We've had a CFO of a publicly traded company, and then a C, another C-suite guy in a publicly traded company. That they're like, my stuff is scrutinized all the time, so
Mhm.
we don't even want anybody to know about it. So it's not listed. There are three phenomenal projects, and unfortunately, no social media, no website presence, no photo shoot, no nothing. Just utter disappointment, other than the people that drive by it. And one of the houses was so remote that the only one who ever saw it was subs.
Yeah,
I couldn't even bring potential clients through. It
yeah.
was so unfulfilling, I should say. But
We
still a great project.
It's on that similar mindset. We were just recently in New York City, and we went there a couple years ago, and I was walking around the city. She was out running, like, for a run, and all I wanted to do was see a construction project. because like construction in New York City is just bonkers.
Yeah.
And I'm like chasing, I'm looking up. I'm like, all right, there's 6 tower cranes on that building. I'm going to go walk over there and check it out. And you literally can't see the jobs because the
Yeah.
building are surrounded by 18 other buildings, and there's like a single path in, and you can't get in that way.
Yeah.
And I remember being so disappointed. And fast forward, we had this project that Vincent Van Dusen did in the Hamptons, and I wanted to see the project, and he's got pictures on his website, but I spent, I mean, far too long trying to figure out where this project was. I was like, I need to know where it is so I can see if I can, you know, not that I would drive by, but like whatever, drive by, Google Street View, like, is there photos of construction anywhere? And there's just, you could tell there was, it must have been a bunch of NDAs because nothing was available. There was no construction photos. And finally, it was like one night, I remember being on Google Earth and I was reading the biography on the project, and there was a handful of cues. And I'm like, all right, that narrows it down. And I can probably find out where it is on Google Earth. And because of course, like, they're not listing the address.
Right.
And it was like, I don't know, maybe an hour into it, I found it, and I'm like, there it is. And I zoom in on Google Earth, and I'm like, all right, now I just need the street view. Click on the street view. Nope, it's all bushes. Can't
All
see the
bushes.
house. Can't
Oh.
can't see the driveway. Nothing. And then Google Earth is only so close, and it's under construction in that photo.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn. But yeah, it's funny, like, you know, I mean, that's the reality. Like, some clients just don't want it, and that's fine. And people ask me all the time, they're like, hey, with all your social media, like, what if you have a client that doesn't want you posting about it? I'm like, that's fine. And they're like, so you would just not post anything? I was like, well, typically my style wouldn't be to just be like, okay, that's fine. Like, I would probably push back and say, hey, can I take detail shots?
Yeah.
Can I take like up close, like construction for, like, if there's no reference of like where I'm at, and
Exactly.
ask for it, like, because
Yeah.
most
Ask
people are
first.
reasonable. Yeah, like,
Yep.
most people are pretty reasonable. It's like, and give them an example. It's like, what about this? It's like, well, you can't even tell
Yep.
where that is in the world. It's like,
That's right.
exactly.
Right. Yeah. That's it. That's exactly the key to that, is to not completely lose the opportunity, but to do that now. And then we have we in our contract, we have a social, we have a, you know, a media
Same.
disclosure, so we know
Yeah,
right away if they don't want anything. So
yeah,
they just don't sign that. So
yeah. We have that agreement in our subcontractor agreement as well. And it's funny, like, subs that haven't worked for us before, they call me like, what the hell is this? I'm like, there's there's gonna be a camera on site like 3 times a week. This is just so
yeah,
you
yeah,
know. And
yeah.
if you don't want to be on camera, you can let us know, and we'll
Work
avoid you.
around you. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, so it's so interesting. I think I mean, we covered a lot of topics in a very short amount of time here.
Mm.
Um, but the media side of it, you know, going back to your original point, it is what ultimately helps you grow as a business and promote the Ferrari, where it's like, sure, you can go build it, but if you're not going to then turn around and take pictures of the Ferrari and then say, I can do this again, it's like, you've done all this work. And that's the whole point. And, you know, the Needham House, it's like, you've done all this work. You expect people to drive by and call you and say, I want that too. It's like,
Yeah.
what about the
Yeah.
photos? You know, you got to show it
Right.
off. You got to showcase like what the result was, and, you know,
Yeah.
and build that. So
I laugh at you see it on social media where a builder will say, "Yeah, here's a look back at a house we did 5 years ago," or, you know, here's one of the throwback Friday, whatever it is, you know, like, so you're basically saying, I don't have anything fresh and relevant, so I'm
mhm.
digging back to the archives, you know. Um,
Oh man, I, we just had a chat about this. We were like, hey, we should throw in some throwback Thursdays or flashback Fridays. Now I might reconsider.
well, I think you've got enough relevant content that it wouldn't
Yeah.
be, you know,
It's
misconstrued as lack of stuff.
no, I know what you're saying. And it's It is like, I mean, social media is just such an interesting place for our industry, because you can see the waves of like interest in a project too, where it's like someone will be super interested in a job and that just falls off. And it's, I mean,
Yeah.
Needham would be a good example for me. It's like, it wasn't that I was disinterested. It was just that the job was done and I had to move on to another project, and I never gave it the per- you know the attention it needed when it was done.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, what about like that should be
Yeah.
promoted.
Yeah. And once it's gone, it's gone. It's really hard to,
Yeah, it's
you
like, hey, do
know,
you mind if I swing back through and take pictures of pumpkins on
yeah,
your front step so I have a pumpkin photo?
a year
It's like,
later, two
yeah.
years later. Yeah. Yeah. So my marketing director has convinced me to, tee this up like in the beginning. Like I said, when,
Yeah,
we're just
that's
about ready to
smart.
start, let's introduce Molly. And so she can set the expectation that,
Mhm.
this is our expectation until you tell me otherwise. We're
Yeah,
going to do a photo shoot, in a lot of cases, we're going to stage it. It means, when no disrespect to your furniture choices, we just, we might feel that, something else might be more appropriate for our audience. And, and then the testimonial, and then you got to make sure that you earn it.
yeah.
So,
That's a
yeah,
great
but
that that's a great piece of advice.
it's a long tail, right? So you think about that, like, we're just getting photos back now from photo shoots that happened like early fall,
Mhm.
projects that finished late spring, projects that started 2 years prior,
Yeah.
clients that I met 3 years prior,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So you think about that. That's 5 years to get
Yeah.
that from first greet to here it is on my website.
Mhm.
That's insane.
And you
You
think
know,
about
so
think about style and design in over 5 years. It's like
yeah, changes.
you hope that it's, like, relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't look at my website often because it's so static. Like,
Mhm.
but every once in a while I go on there and I'm like, oh my God, we haven't updated and it's just because these projects take so long.
Yeah.
Then the photo shoot takes a long time. Schedule the photographer, then he shoots. And now, like, I'm expecting him in my inbox in the morning, and he needs
Yeah.
like 3 weeks to edit him. Edit him? Jeez,
Yeah.
you got the
What do you
most
got?
expensive camera on the planet.
Yeah. This thing's perfect.
Jeez.
It's
So
fu
it's so frustrating. I just want to shake,
I know.
but I have to be patient. And it's like putting money into the stock market. You can't expect that. You just have to dollar cost average it, a little bit every day,
Mhm.
and you don't know where the highs are, you don't know where the lows are. So if you just keep that churn of project photography and testimonials, they just sort of, there's always one dropping. And granted, it's been years, but at least there's a frequency and a cadence,
Yeah.
so that you know that they're accumulating.
Well, I think you've encouraged me. Though my projects aren't starting right now, I do need to get some testimonials filmed, and now I'm just gonna be pressured to do so.
Yeah. So I've just given every one of your listeners a head start on you,
No shit.
and me too.
Jeff, you said you're on the other side of it. You're rolling now.
I don't know that you're ever on the other side of it,
I know.
but it's all relative.
It
It's
is.
all
I
relative.
you know what? One final thing, because I know we're both in Builder 20 groups, but I will say that I think you feel this way too. That is probably the single best thing I've ever done, because to sit in a room and feel so beaten down or taken by an industry that is so difficult. Like, building is just a very difficult industry. There's so much emotion to it. There's so many people involved with it. And
Yeah.
to sit in a room with peers that you respect and look up to, and look for guidance, and to understand that all of them look at you with the same respect and provide and take guidance and share that, hey man, listen, like it ain't it's not that great for me either, and here's how I've worked through it, and here's what
Yeah.
I'm going through, and to know that, you know, we're all in it together, and we're all there to encourage each other and to support one another, and quite literally realize that this is an industry we chose primarily out of passion, and we spend our life trying to make money doing it.
Mm. Yeah, I concur. Builder 20 for me, arguably the single best decision I made in my business in 35 years. The most transformative of the 6 years that I've been in,
Mm-hmm.
by far the most transformative. And I think that you're right in that you have to approach it with a certain amount of vulnerability, because if you go in there trying to mask your reality
You get
and
nothing
try
out of
to,
it.
you get nothing out of it. You know, you get the most out of it when you can be vulnerable,
Yeah.
and you get the criticism. And I struggle personally when I'm on the other side and I've got to be critical.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for me, my nature, to be critical of people, but I also know that I'm not doing them any justice by giving them pleasantries when I should be giving them hard advice.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's been unbelievable, and I would encourage anybody out there that's looking to grow and be better in your business, to look into it.
for sure. Yeah, I actually just found out that at one point I think there was like 130 or so Builder 20 groups. They're down to 20 something.
No, it's
Yeah,
more than that. Yeah,
that's what.
really? Who told you
Yeah,
that?
that's a good question. I don't remember, but I
I don't
remember
think that there was ever 130 of them.
there was over 100. My understanding is that there was over 100, and over the last couple of years, they just have struggled to sustain. Like a lot of the groups individually, not as NAHB, like they just, you know, we know we had 5 come to our group and say, hey, we just left our group. We'd like to all 5 of us join you guys, and we're like,
Wow.
we're tapped. We're 20.
Yeah.
Like we have 20 people in our group. So and yeah, I don't know what the reasoning was. It just sounded like a lot of groups just, I mean, our group, 65 people showed up to our home tour, meaning like that's all 20 builders and then their spouses and
Spouses.
business
Yeah.
partners. And it's like, and we were talking to some of the other groups and they're like, we had 10 people show up to our home tour. It's like,
Yeah.
that's not a helpful group. Like
Yeah.
our group is deep.
Yeah. We fill a bus. We fill a
Yeah.
full size bus.
Yeah. Same. We fill a bus and then usually one car, like an SUV, will pick up the stragglers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, I get a prospect report every couple of months, and there's a
yeah.
lot of names on that prospect. People looking for groups,
Yeah.
and we're on the smaller side. We're under 15, and we like it that way. That way, you give more attention to each.
Yeah.
We could grow to 20. I don't think we would,
Yeah.
but
I actually
we
didn't know. Like, I think you were the one that told me that. I was like, aren't you supposed to be 20?
no.
Like, that's the whole point of Builder 20.
Well, I think the point of it is up to 20, but no more.
Yeah.
So no, there's no pressure to be. I mean, I don't think you can be 3, because it would just be so expensive, because you're still dividing the cost of
Yeah. That's fair.
the venue and the
Yeah.
moderator and all of that. So I think
Yeah.
there's a certain economy of scale.
Totally. All right, Jeff. Well, I always
Good
appreciate
stuff.
a
Yeah.
conversation with you. And yeah, are we going to see you at the Builder Show? I know we're a few months away, but I feel like it will be here in no time.
You're going to see somebody. I don't know if it's going to be me.
Okay.
I know my daughter. Depends on how many awards we win.
Oh, geez. Okay. I only come if I get 10 awards. That's it.
If I get awards, they walk up to get. Yeah, I mean, I've been to so many of them. They just get
I know.
they get old.
Yeah.
That I'm always super stimulated when I go, and
Yep.
but it's God, I mean,
It is a lot. It is repetitive. We end up going every year because we end up committing to multiple media things, even
yeah.
though I leave there the prior year. I'm like, I'm not doing anything next year.
Yeah.
Someone's like, you want to speak on pre-construction? I'm like, I'll be there.
Yeah, in
Next
fact,
thing you know,
the last time I was there, I was walking down the hall, and you and Johnny were like, "Hey, Jeff, you want to get on the episode? Come on over." Like, like,
snuck you in.
yeah, stuck me in. But anyway,
All right, dude. Well,
all
always
right.
good to see you. We
Yeah,
will
you too.
I'll chat with you soon.
Okay.
See ya.
All right, see you.
Always a good conversation with Jeff. Tyler is he's actually in Minnesota speaking at an event about pre-construction. I mean, if you guys are on our email newsletter, you know that we launched our pre-construction course. Wow, what a launch that was. We had 250 engaged people on our webinar. We're going to prioritize getting monthly webinars, I believe, out, especially with the Q&As. I think we answered like 110 questions in just over an hour, which is pretty impressive. But, we are the introductory rate for the pre-construction course is coming to an end. So if you want to sign up, make sure you click the link on our Instagram bio. It is the pre-construction course. If you want to join our newsletter, moderncraftsman.co.co, on our website, there's a button on the bottom to join. And if you want some freebies at the top, you can download our pre-construction agreement or a labor burden calculator. Both of those are free for you to download. They're our gift to you. But the course is where we get into it. The course is 6 hours long. It's everything on pre-construction, from understanding what it is to selling it to how to execute it and how to produce and set up a job for success, being on time, on budget. So if you guys haven't checked that out, I would encourage you to do so, especially if you want the introductory rate. And then, of course, more to come after that. And as always, guys, appreciate you listening. Drop us a review on any podcast app. We appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week.